watching Morning at NTV.
Thank you so much for being with us here on Tuesday's edition of Morning at NTV. I am Priscilla Regina Naloga, and our first conversation of the day is going to be looking at seeds and farming. Now, with the ever-increasing attention to what is known as the environmental hazards, you do have global conversations, global summits that have been sitting to make sure left, right, and center we do cater to our environment and the nature all around us. Food security has not been one conversation that has been left out of these tables and rooms of discussion. And so this morning we want to look at some of the ways and initiatives that have been actually implemented to ensure that there's food security within Uganda as a country, taking note of farmer managed seed systems. Now, here to have this conversation with me, I do have Joshua Aijuka, who's joining me all the way from Peplam as the head of programs at Pelam. And so we want to have a better understanding of what it means to actually have a farmer managed seed. Good morning to you, Joshua.
Good morning, Priscilla.
And so let's get right into it. What are farmer managed seed systems?
Well, farmer managed seed systems refer to a process that empowers farmers to be in full control of their seeds and the processes that lead to the continuity of them having the seeds. So it's not a new thing. This is how agriculture was traditionally. You'd actually think that being a farmer, you must manage and own your own seeds. But over time, we realize that with modernization and globalization and the privatization of the sector, we are seeing more and more control over the seed sector. And this control over the seed sector is affecting the capacity of the farmers to actually manage their seed system. And this reflects in many ways. One is the propaganda that farmers cannot manage their own seeds. Good quality seeds, so you'd find new seed is being called improved seeds, or of course the hybrids and all that, which are actually not necessarily bad, but then they come out as though farmer seed is inferior and we need to do away with it ultimately. So, and then of course the other is the focus, research and private sector investment. Where is the private sector interested in? Of course it's in making profit, which is a good thing. But then that means that the focus is going to look at what seeds are going to make and what technologies are going to make the best profit for our investment. And as such, you find that hybrids, for example, hybrid technology, and crops like maize, which are highly commercial, will be prioritized over, say, millet, probably beans, bambara nuts, and some of these are very highly nutritious, or even have a lot of economic value, which hasn't been really exploited, simply because the private sector interest is not there so much. So farmer managed seed systems is taking us to the core of appreciation that for us to realize our right to food as Ugandans, we need to ensure that the farmers need to manage and own seed-related resources.
Okay.
So that's the whole concept.
All right. So while that's a good concept, I believe that those that have infiltrated that seed sector, the researcher farms and all these developers of genetically modified seed, they were trying to also come up with that concept to counter the challenges that were existing with seed management at the time. One of them, of course, being the climate change that we need to talk about. We look about that leading to the soil changes and all these other environmental changes that have come within our society. And so they took that mandate upon themselves to ensure that the farmer has good seed. However, if we go back to seed, farmer managed seed systems, then we are going to be going back to the same challenges that we presented themselves before being unaddressed.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. Yes, research is out there to address the challenges that we have, and that's a fact. And it's true that challenges of, say, climate, changing climate and its effects, issues of soil fertility decline, have greatly affected productivity and vulnerability of the sector at large. And in some cases, some seeds or some varieties of seeds, some of which are managed under family seed systems, have not been able to tolerate some of these changes. But then that does not mean that farmers are not doing anything about it. Actually, what has come out very strongly from our work is that farmers actually have over time been able to discover which varieties have been able to cope and adapt to the changing climate. And we realize that actually by farmers and researchers working together, they are able to achieve greater results. So our work in promoting family seed systems is actually not to entirely do away with issues to do with research, agricultural research, or new breeding approaches. We are trying to see how can farmers be at the center of these processes. That's why we're focusing on farmer managed. So we have some of the approaches we're using, for example, is participatory plant breeding. Okay. And in this we are working with the National Agricultural Research Organizations together with the farmers, where at the onset farmers and researchers agree on setting the objectives they want for the new varieties. They agree to select and test what is available and what traits they want to improve. And with the support, they are able to collectively work together and develop, either improve the local varieties or even develop some new varieties themselves. So farmer managed seed systems actually goes beyond just depending on seed that is basically maybe home kept seed or seed you buy in an open market. Okay. It goes beyond, it's more on how do we build the capacity of strengthening what the policy is calling the informal seed sector. So farmer managed seed system is an improvement of the informal seed sector, because the informal seed sector is, you basically want to plant, you go out there, find whatever you find, you plant it, sometimes you keep it, but you're not even sure if it's about to, if it's going to germinate or not. The farmer managed seed system, it means it adds in the science, it adds in the indigenous knowledge, and a system that enables good seed quality management. Okay. So it's basically a combination, but ensuring that the farmers' rights are preserved at all times. Well,
this conversation comes in light of the fact that most recently there's been an advocacy towards agro-industrialization. Yes. And so I believe that that's also a pressure that you need to have consideration of. So in light of that, how important is it for actually farmers to manage their own seed?
Well, one, it is a low-hanging fruit for agro-industrialization. We are looking at over 70% of our farmers still dependent on informal seed sector. And that it is much easier to transition the informal seed sector towards a more technically managed farmer seed system than it is to transition those farmers to go into the formal sector. So a farmer seed system would enable that these farmers who are depending on any source of seed actually can have locally available diverse, and diverse is very important because diversity underpins resilience to climate change, but also is very key for issues of food security and nutrition, but also other cultural issues. You know where you come from, there are some foods that are very, that relate to you, So it's really, we believe that by promoting farmer seed systems is going to be the first step towards ensuring that the majority of the Uganda's population are actually going into the mainstream of agro-industrialization in a more sustainable way, where we don't have to lose our agrobiodiversity. The challenge we're having right now is that we're having more and more focus on less and less. You find that crops like maize, actually globally you find that probably over 70% of all the food production is like focusing on about maybe 5 to 6 crops. And in that maybe a few other varieties, and that is very dangerous. I'll give you an example. Uganda has proved to be very resilient amid these very many shocks, one of them being COVID. You never saw or had any food relief going to the rural areas. And it is simply because farmers are still by and large managing their seed systems. So rather than doing away with that, how about we strengthen it? We work collaboratively with the research organizations where the farmers are not doing it well. Can you add in the knowledge? Yeah. Rather than say, no, do away with this, take this. Because also we've seen over time, a new variety is released, it does well, maybe 2-3 seasons, then it's acceptable.
But you see, even with the new varieties or the GMOs, they're not generic. different regions will not, take them in so well. So it could be good for the northern region, but not good for the weather and the climate in the western region of Uganda.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually that's one thing we've learned, that not even the region, even in sometimes in one parish, we would get varieties from a research organization within the region. We establish field plots. We call it participatory variety selection, where we test them in different areas. And you find that one variety is working in one garden very well, but not doing well in another garden in the same locality.
Yeah.
Because of these other soil conditions, the fertility, maybe
and the care of the garden, how the farmer themselves cater to their own garden. And so, I know that you've been interacting with some farmers in Soroti, in Apache, in Adjumani. What have been the direct benefits of actually having this kind of systems for them?
One thing for sure is the capacity to manage own seeds. We have also seen increased diversity. One of the first things we did at the start, this project Sowing Diversity Equals Harvesting Security, has been funded by Oxfam for the last 5 years, with the back donor being the Swedish development agency. And one of the things we realized that when farmers were able to actually identify what seeds they have lost over time, and they had efforts to collect them, then to test them, see how they work. And then they went into participatory variety enhancement, which was able now to help improve the negative traits of these local varieties. You would find seeds like bambara nuts, very, very rich, but you find some of them have, maybe they take longer to mature, they are low yielding, and things like that. And farmers, with the help of the researchers, are able to help improve on that through continuous on-farm selection, selecting those that are exhibiting the traits that you want. And then after a while, when you're satisfied, you multiply. Then we established community seed banks. We've established over 8 community seed banks within the project. These structures that are set up for better storage, to avoid scenarios, for example, where farmers keep seed in their stores, then when food is finished, they end up eating the seed. And then now they have to go to the market and buy grain thinking it's seed. So we've improved access to that. Then also the income. We've started an initiative called the Farmer Seed Enterprises, and this is provided for in the National Seed Policy, where farmers can engage in production of quality declared seeds. But one of the challenges we found with that provision now is that most of these local materials can't easily be produced, because the policy says that seeds must be from a known source, and in many cases a known source is referring to a research organization and so on. So you find that most of these indigenous seeds can't easily be produced under quality declared seeds. So we've started an initiative under the Seed NL initiative called Farmer Variety Registration, where we're trying to work with the researchers in the ministry, certification department, to explore avenues that we can use to register some of our indigenous seed varieties that are not yet on the seed catalog, because once they are not registered, they can't be produced as quality declared seed.
All right, Joshua, I also know that you are organizing a dialogue in this advocacy work that you're doing as PELAM. Tell us more about that dialogue.
Well, the dialogue is part of a week-long event called the Farmer Managed Seed Systems Caravan. We've had a team of different players, farmers, researchers, ministry officials, civil society actors, media, moving to different routes where the projects have been taking place. The northeastern region, Soroti, Amuria, Apache, and then the northwestern, looking at Nebi, Adjumani, and all the way towards the northern, which is Omoro and Gulu, to just learn and see what farmers are doing broadly. And after that, on Friday, we're having a policy dialogue. Partly to share experiences, but also discuss the enabling policy environment for supporting the scaling up of some of these best practices, including farmer variety registration, as I've told you, because it is very important for advancing farmer-managed seed systems.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Joshua Aijuka, who's the head of programs with PELAM, and I trust that we'll be keeping tabs on that dialogue to help farmers ensure that they have control over the seed that they grow, and then later on you have good food harvest, which then translates into